What kind of underbed business? Can you imagine me have one daughter? I am going to walk down the aisle one time and you just want to propose to her underbed. I begin to. Hey guys, welcome to another week, Reason with Robdon, with our couples special, Mr. and Mrs. Robdon.
Couples Corner.
This week, we are going to continue to talk about lessons learned from my father-in-law during my engagement phase. So if you all recall from part 1, and if you have not yet watched part 1, you probably want to go back and review part 1 because my father-in-law had me on 7 days hard labor. But I won't say anything more.
Hard labor.
Yeah, I won't say anything more than that. I'll just leave you to go and check the video or click the link below. So this time, my father-in-law would have said, after I did my good surprise proposal, can you imagine, people? This was months of preparation, fasting and prayer. This wasn't just get up and go buy one ring down the road, you know. Oh, sorry for my British and Canadian United States viewers. I did not just go and buy a ring at a pawn shop or at a corner shop. I had to have gone through a phase of fasting, prayer, preparation, mentally prepare myself. I was going to take on a young lady. I don't know her, on the most observe that she's very miserable. I mean, she has improved a lot, you know, but she's still miserable. I was taking on a young lady who came from a proper good up home. I was coming from a broken home where, you know, domestic violence was present and other things. So my father-in-law, upon congratulating me, invited me to his house, and on the last day of the lesson, I was told that we will have to do it over. We will have to do it properly. Can you imagine that, people? Do it over. Imagine all that I went through. I'm going to have to do this again, go back on my knee a second time and ask for the same lady. Man, I felt like this was worse than what was it? Moses? No, Jacob.
Jacob and Leah?
Yes. At least Jacob had 2 wives.
He wanted Rachel, but in trick him and give him Leah, so he had to wait another 8 years, I think.
7 years.
7 years to get Rachel. Mm-hmm.
No, people of God, I was going to wait what appears to be another 7 years. Not for a Rachel, but for Daniel again. I had already asked her. I got yes, and now I am going to ask her again, which means she have more time to say no.
Please.
So, all right. So this is what happened now. What happened? Right. So we were told that we'll have to do it properly. Mm-hmm. And we asked, what do you mean by properly? What kind of underbed business? Can you imagine me have one daughter? I am going to walk down the aisle one time and you just want to go propose to her underbed? No. It has to be done properly. It has to be done with a ceremony. People, yes. I have never seen anybody engage with a ceremony. Can I tell you what kind of ceremony I'm talking about? we had to have vows.
Yes. But before that, I see it ironic, and you know, we are a Christian couple, so we always try to see how we can, you know, bring out the Bible and stuff. Now, when Joseph found out that Mary was pregnant and he decided to put her away silently, the reason why he decided that he was going to take that route was because they had a particular ceremony with witnesses. So in order for Joseph, if he was going to follow through with putting her away secretly, he would have to do it with some witness to confirm that it was actually done. So what we did was something similar to that.
What?
Where
Touch a girl. Girl.
yeah.
Girl,
so
study.
what we did was something to me that
Where it go?
Listen, I'll put it in the thing here. But it was shocking to us because when we actually went.
Can I just finish my story?
Oh, sorry.
See, they keep going. You see, this is my story.
I'm allowing you to talk. No,
She
to talk.
took over my
So
story.
yeah, just talk.
So, may I now proceed with my story?
Long time.
Okay, so just understand this now. We have never heard about an engagement ceremony. Now, I could understand an engagement celebration. I could understand going out to dinner for a engagement and somebody find a ring in a cake. That was not what my father-in-law was asking for. Oh, you find the word? Yes, people.
Betrothal. So that's betrothal.
Betrothal.
And it's a formal engagement to be married.
You see?
Okay, so that's what we had.
See, you live and you learn. I didn't know this up to this point. So there was actually a ceremony for real. And I am learning that on the 31st of May, 2020, after 7 years of marriage, after me sit down and bash my father-in-law, take my name for switch now. But anyways, I'm still going to talk about my pain because I know every man went through that. So, you know, that was bad. So anyways, my father-in-law said to me that, you know, if you want my daughter, you have to understand that my daughter is precious to me. This is my one daughter. You really think you can purchase her so cheap? Can I tell somebody something? I feel like I'm preaching. I'm not preaching. I'm trying to I want to encourage some young ladies out there while I speak. As my father-in-law, let me just say father, taught me something very important, Mr. Brown. He taught me that a woman must be of a high price. A woman must be of a high value. That and I want to say to young ladies, don't ever lower the standard in order to get a man to propose to you or in order for a man to ask for your hand in a wedding. There must be a price, there must be a standard that man have to climb over. There must be hills and valleys for a man to go over. A man must do the thing that we do in soldiering. Crawl under barbed wire, roll across the field, get up, double run, drop, sweat to get to a woman. I want to let you know that this was how Jewish marriages used to go. A man had to purchase or to pay a very high bride price. And the bride price was to indicate to that man the value that the value that he now has and the expectation of the father that you will take care of this, my daughter. You will take care of this now, your wife. Every time you remember the investment that you made, every time you think about the bride price, how high it was, you're supposed to respect her a little more. Yeah, you're supposed to understand that it is your responsibility to keep her smiling, to keep her going. Listen, when the price is high, listen, you don't just wear, when you buy a shoes that you pay a high price, you don't just walk in the mud. You don't just get some black paint and rub over it. No, because it is of a high price. Every time you remember the price and the investment that you had to, it gives you the idea, the mindset that you, and I'm talking to some men now, that you need to take care of the person's wife. Could it be that
child,
the person's
your
child,
wife.
Your wife? Yeah, I'm sorry. Could it be that a lot of marriages are not working today because the price for the woman was too cheap? What was it that you lowered your standards so low that the man has nothing to remember or to introspect on and to say, this is why I need to respect. This is why I need to love. This is why I need to honor my wife. All right, so let me come out of the counseling note. You can ding me up in, what you call it, DM? You can DM me, message me, ding me, and we can give you some more.
Inbox.
And yeah, inbox me on that. But yeah, back to the thing. He allowed me to understand that if I learn to climb mountains early for my wife, if I am willing to go through anything that is difficult, in the future when hard times come, I will never run away. It will become a part of me to want to stay and fight. And so, though it was a hard moment for you to tell me that my fiance can no longer wear the ring, and that I will have to plan a proper ceremony with the help of family in order to get her hand in marriage. That for me was a lesson. That for me was symbolic to a high price. And so in Jewish weddings, it was the father who would set the price for the daughter. And so I want to talk to some young ladies on here. You have the ability to set your price, raise your standard. I'm not talking about hard to get. We'll talk about that in another video. I'm not talking about being extra difficult for no reason. Is setting up a standard when every time that person sees and remember you, there is a standard and there is something to remember. All right, so because of that very early standard, I learned to see my wife as not just another girl, not just a girl in the park, not just a girl who me just convince and persuade and she became my wife. But I had to remember the standard, the expectation, the leveling that I had with Mr. Brown. When Mr. Brown sit me down and said, listen, I have never abused my daughter. I have never been disrespectful. I have had to correct her. You know, there are times when I had to deal with her because she can have her own way, and you all will realize by her attitude that she can have her own way. But what I want you to do is to learn to value her. Brothers and sisters, in a church, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to understand the lessons. So fast forward, we had to have a engagement ceremony. Now the engagement ceremony had to be planned like a wedding. So invitation had to go out. We had to cook the curry goat. We had to cook the chicken, cake. People, we had champagne. We have cut cake. And we couldn't bird feed because...
Wait, hold on, yeah, skip it. You go too fast.
No, I'm not go fast. I give a synopsis. I'm going to come back to it and tidy it up properly. But I want them to understand the general picture. We had to have, you know, we had to have a pastor. And it's the first time I know that there was actually vows written. Big up to my good bishop, may his soul rest in peace.
Bishop Aiken, he was a sweet soul.
Yes, unfortunately we would have lost him some years ago. big up to his wife. She was very instrumental. We were now at the ceremony. I had to stand up in front of my wife like on the day. It was like we were rehearsing for the actual wedding. No, as she stood up, I could hear the pastor asking the question, do you promise to focus on Daniel only during this courtship and to have no other young lady? It did sound funny. Hear me, I promise.
And funny enough, I don't remember those vows. You said the vows and you were really true to them. But after going through the process of marriage, I honestly, I'd have to get one of them red books with the vows to revisit those. But I want to say, that we had a lot of support in planning this event. We did it in Clarendon, the same place he proposed the first time.
Yes,
so he went the same place to get it right. Right.
Yes.
So we had very good support from family there. We won't forget those.
Clarendon, Trelawney.
We want Clarendon, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary. We had people from Kingston, Mandeville.
Big up yourself, Church Teachers College.
We had people supporting, and we really appreciate that. We've always had support.
We have always.
We've always had support.
We have always. So, you can I know that what we're talking about sound really crazy. So, you can let us know if any of you ever had an engagement, like a wedding.
Formal engagement ceremony.
Like
we want to know, if we are the strange ones in the pack, or if other persons share the same thing. Because it was really different for us, but we appreciated, it played an important role in the process. But something happened. Oh, you're going to...
Can I call...
Okay.
So yes, we stood up and said, I promise to all vows. Then one little young man from St. Mary, we were asked to cut cake, and I heard a little young man shouting, give her peace. No, I was cutting cake because me know that my wife is from a lineage of people who are strict. Nothing. So you have to make sure you pass the fork with cake, and you have your social distance.
So social distance is not just for 2020.
Isolate. What the next word? Quarantine yourself. While
Oh God.
I almost think like we had what I want to believe. Them long mic the reporter trying to collect news from the people during the COVID season. So I feel like I had an extended knife that was just out there.
It was a fork.
Yeah, fork. Now here's this one young man jump up. None of that. Bird feed.
Who wasn't going to have that?
Feed. Here's the lesson now. I only hear Mr. Brown cry out, one wing! One wing! I said one wing. Now all me slow and try process in my brain what one wing meant, because I can't understand what one wing mean. And so, somebody was there trying to force us to serve. We had to pass on the wine as well.
Yeah, the same way.
But social
like wedding, but the cake we couldn't kiss.
Social distance.
So we had to, cut and then use the fork. It was just a formal engagement.
But
so
every 30 seconds, one wing. We had we took a break in the ceremony because now people were catering and eating and stuff. So I went by Mr. Brown because I was curious what one wing meant. Because this man always have a lot of analogy. And remember that this is all about analogies and learning lessons from my father-in-law. So he explained to me, he said, son, if I have a bird with one wing, can that bird fly? I said, no, sir, it can't fly. Exactly. How many rings did you put on my daughter's hand? One, sir. That means you have one wing. We know what that means?
If you take them cross.
So, don't think you own her. You're only halfway there. He said to me, paying mortgage doesn't mean you own the property fully. Yeah. And a layaway plan doesn't mean you own the property. It means you paid down on the property. So not until you put on the other piece of ring, and you know what that's going to be. That is going to be the day, the wedding day. Not until you do that, you have full access to my daughter. That is the time she becomes your wife. Now, people, that threw me at a place of deep introspection and reflection. At the same time, appreciation. I learned that for me was a valuable lesson. You know, sometimes, you know, we think that in a union, once you end up in a relationship, you're supposed to behave and act like, you know, you're married. And so you need to be doing all this stuff. Can I tell you that when I engaged to my wife, I couldn't walk on the road and hold her hand. We couldn't think about to hug up and make nobody even know. We had to social
We were told
distance.
Point blank. My mother said point blank.
Yeah.
Mommy, you know. She said, when you're walking even down the road, make sure.
One at front, one at back. Or one on the left.
She make sure. She said, make sure. You don't hold hand. You not married yet.
No. One might think that they were crazy. At the time, I want to admit that we didn't really appreciate. We thought they were too much. Yeah. And some of you who are listening to this broadcast now, you're going to think that they were too much. Oh, they're so extra. But listen, I believe that it was those principles that strengthened the foundation of this union. If I could sit around and wait on my wife and be respectful to my wife, that taught a valuable lesson. Can I tell you people that you don't have to sell yourself cheaply? And if you're entering, and you know what I learned from that is that marriage, getting together, is no rush. It is not a 100-meter race. This is not a Usain Bolt and Ewan Blake trying to reach the finish line. This is a lifetime. We were engaged for quite a bit of time, almost 2 years or so. We had to spend out there. And one valuable lesson that we have learned from that is that because life is no rush, you can take your time and map out a plan. We had to sit down and map out, you know, a plan as to how our union was going to work, our marriage was going to work, how our relationship was going to work. And then my father-in-law was the kind of person that during this period of the one wing, every chance he get to talk to me, he would call me and it would always be presenting a scenario with a problem and asking me how I would resolve it. How would you resolve this problem? For example, you get up one day and your wife is upset. You are actually right and she's been miserable and upset. How are you going to deal with it? And I sat down, you know, a young man from a broken home. And for a while I thought, if I'm right, I'm just right. and I'm just going to be right. And I am not going to change my views and my perspective about that particular situation. But it is out of those moments, those one-wing moments, that I learn to look and reflect on some of the positive building blocks that one needs for a union. So if I have a word to share with somebody, you might be engaged right now. You might be dating right now. I just want to say to you that marriage is no rush.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime. This is one university you're not going to graduate from. This is one church you shouldn't try to demember from. This is one employment that you shouldn't be thinking about leaving the job. So during this phase, what you need to be doing in your one-wing phase is spending much time in prayer, spending much time in communication, spending much time drafting up a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, putting down active steps as to how you are going to accomplish each goal. Now is the time to talk about conflicts and talk yourself through as to how you would have resolved this problem. The one-wing phase is very important if you're going to be successful when you have two wings. Don't try to behave like you have two wings when you only have one wing. During your one wing phase, that's a time you're to be preempting what is going to happen in marriage and learning skills, learning tactics, going around getting encouragement, getting advices, reading books, talking to each other, trying to arm yourself with the proper tools and techniques to make sure that marriage actually works. So people of God, wow.
So
guys, we went through our one wing phase.
Yeah.
And that was what we did. And I want to tell you that we made it to 7 years. And a lot of the principles that we're mastering now and are practicing now are some of those very same principles that we would have gone during the one wing phase. No, don't despise the one wing phase.
Yeah.
Don't rush to have two wings. Keep that one wing. Appreciate the one wing. It is in the one wing phase that it is most difficult. Remember a bird trying to fly. Every time it gets up, it falls back to the ground. Yes, that will be necessary because you're going to remember those lessons and you're going to learn to appreciate each other in the long run to come. So, big up Jerky. Mr. Brown. and thank you for those valuable lessons. 2 valuable lessons I shared with you. Putting a high price upon your wife, for father's price on your daughter. And men, don't be afraid of paying this high price in order to pursue. It is that thing that is going to tell you that, listen, I have to respect my wife. I have to love my wife. And I have to be faithful. I have to try and make this union work when everything else will not be working. All right?
Can I add something though?
Yeah.
He would always say to me, while we were in that one wing phase, Danielle, you need to be using the time to seek God and, being observant, look at the different things that are coming up and that kind of thing. And he would always say to me to enhance that up to the lip, the cup can slip.
What?
And he would sing that in our ear, not just mine, but even Nicholas. And he would say, up to the lip, the cup can spill.
Yes.
And can slip.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the logics of it, you might have a cup and you're putting it to your mouth. Anything can happen, and it's slip. Something,
and you lose
the whole cup. You lose the contents of it. There are some things that I think sometimes during the one wing phase, there are visible red flags. And we tend to ignore them going into marriage, hoping that the person will change. if you are in the one wing stage and you are realizing that there are some red flags coming up in the in the relationship,
kick with the cup.
I would say to
Throw the cup away.
you either try to work on the issue now before entering the two-wing stage where you're expected to fly and then become handicapped because of that red flag, or you allow the cup to be moved completely from your mouth before making that full commitment. Because marriage is a covenant between you, that person, and God. And we have to take the vows seriously. No, it's not going to be perfect. There are still things that Honey is going to find out about me. There are still things I'm going to be finding out. My parents always said, we've been married for how many years? And there are some things that we're still finding out about each other. So it's inevitable to know the person 100% while going into marriage. But there are some red flags that sometimes, because we're so eager to get into marriage, we ignore them. And then when we get into the two-wing stage, these same issues are what causes people to want to divorce and to fall apart. So that's the third point that we would like to add to it. Up to the lip, the cup can slip.
If you enjoyed this broadcast this week, just go ahead, like, comment, let us know what you think about the points that we shared with you that we would have learned from my father-in-law, Mr. Norman Brown. I'm happy that I can be speaking about his lessons that I have actually learned from him, and hopefully they can be a blessing to you and your union. I want to say that come back and join us next week where the conversation continues. We'll take you through another phase of lessons learned from my father-in-law. Until next time, we are out of here. Mr. and Mrs.
Robdon Couples Corner.
We're out.
Bye, guys. Thank you guys for watching.